Wye Oh from King Arthur by Percival. Thank you, Pippa. Good afternoon, welcome. The Wye Tour. We travel for various purposes, to explore the culture of soils, to view the curiosities of art, to survey the beauties of nature, and to learn the manners of men, their different politics and modes of life. The following little work proposes a new object of pursuit, that of examining the face of a country by the rules of picturesque beauty. Welcome to the Wye Tour. And ladies and gentlemen, you have caught us mid-route on our two-day tour. We are reenacting the Wye Tour as it was taken at the end of the 18th century, beginning of the 19th century. It took 2 days from Ross-on-Wye to Chepstow. Yesterday we started at Ross-on-Wye, we went to Goodrich, Simonsiat, and then did our show at the Savoy Theatre in Monmouth last night. And today we start here in the wonderful village of Brockweir, and then we head off straight after this half-an-hour show to Tintern. We do a half-an-hour show there about Tintern and its relationship with the Wye Tour. Then we head off to Piercefield House. Oh no, that's fallen down, it doesn't have a roof. So we'll go to St. Armand's Village Hall instead. And then this evening we perform the whole show. It's a whole evening's entertainment from Ross to Chepstow at the Drill Hall tonight. So if you're not doing anything, please do come along. So thank you for coming today to our Brockweir section of the Wye Tour.
The Wye Tour owes its origins to the Reverend John Egerton. He was the rector of Ross in the 1740s. He used to entertain his friends by taking them down the river in a pleasure boat. The idea caught on, and by the 1770s it was quickly becoming the commercial version and established itself as a 2-day trip. Tourists were taken from Ross to Monmouth, and then on from Monmouth to Chepstow.
In the late 18th century, Britain was on the edge of a Europe in turmoil as the Napoleonic Wars raged. And men and women of means were no longer able to tour in Europe, of course, so they began to look for alternatives closer to home. As a result, the Wye Tour became increasingly popular. The boats that Pippa mentions have this protective awning, which you may see in a moment, a protective awning above the boat which shielded the occupants from inclement weather, maybe even sunshine, and under which was a little table, and they sat and painted, sketched the wonderful scenery, and wrote poems and prose. And this, good afternoon, welcome, you haven't missed anything. Singing a rather nice Purcell song. Have you come far?
Not too far.
Are you Brockweirian, or a Brockweirdo, I've heard you You are, yes, very warm welcome. So this, I suppose, was the first package tour, and it had everything: stops for picnics, industry, the ruins, of course, of Tintern Abbey, castles on cliff tops, and the wonders of the Piercefield walks, and of course the colour and life which you are about to see of lawless places such as Brockweir.
In 1783, the book that was to become the essential companion was finally published. The Reverend William Gilpin's Observations on the River Wye, relative chiefly to picturesque beauty. Gilpin laid down rules for assessing the picturesque quality of the views encountered on the trip down the river. His extreme ideas were exposed to ridicule by some, but the search for the picturesque scene became an obsession for the growing number of people who followed faithfully in his footsteps. The Wye Tour can be seen as the first packaged tour, and the lower Wye Valley has been hailed as the birthplace of British tourism. Such was its importance.
Rules of the picturesque. The most perfect river views are composed of 4 grand parts. The area, which is the river itself, the 2 side screens, which are the opposite banks, and the front screen, which points out the winding of the river.
its hazy blue, just as Landoga came in view. Delightful village. One by one its climbing dwellings caught the sun. So bright the scene, the air so clear. Young love and joy seemed stationed here, and each with floating banners cried, "Stop, friends, you'll meet the slimy tide."
This scenery is not destitute of peculiar beauties.
Ah, there is the scenery. And you can see the Wye tourists are sketching busily in their pads there and looking this way, aren't we, at the lovely scenery? Carry on.
Among which may be ranked the village of Landoga, picturesquely situated on the acclivity of the steep rock, and bosomed in trees, the roofs and chimneys peeping out of the thick foliage, with a neat little church placed at the bottom of the steep rock.
A lofty hill whose indented side is mantled with deep woods, through which a multitude of small cottages sprinkled over the declivity in a picturesque manner,
Oh, how lovely.
show their little whitened fronts and strongly impress the imagination with the idea of its becoming a fairyland. This spot is generally esteemed a beautiful feature of the Wye.
Adieu, Landoga, scene most dear. Fare back well we bade to Ethel's weir. Round many a point then bore away, till morn was changed to beauteous day. And forward on the lowland shore, silent, majestic ruins wore the stamp of holiness. This round the steersman hailed and touched the land.
The picturesque. Are we ready now for a little sketching lesson? Yes, hang on, let's look at. That's very good. What is it? The picturesque, both texture and composition. Excuse me. There you go. Got a good view there. Yes. Both texture and composition are important in a correctly picturesque scene, you see. The texture should be rough, that's right, intricate, varied or broken, without obvious straight lines. So scrub that bit out and it's not there. The composition should be a unified whole, incorporating several elements. Let's have a look. Oh, that's right, you've incorporated several elements there. You've got your dark foreground with its front screen, well done, yes. And also, what's that? Oh, that's the brighter middle distance, and then at least one other further distance. Yes, not bad, not bad. I think in yours, madam, a ruined abbey or castle would be of consequence, something like that. Or a low viewpoint you need. A low viewpoint which can tend to emphasize the sublime, and it was always preferable to have a viewpoint from on high. You see, that's very good. That's very not good at all. Well, nature, you see, nature is good at producing textures and colours, but it is rarely capable of creating the perfect composition. Yes, I'm afraid not. So extra help is needed from the artist, perhaps in the form of a carefully placed tree or something. What's that? It's a tree. Anyway, to carry on. Yes.
Although he came in for criticism, Gilpin had published at exactly the right time. Improved road communications and travel restrictions on continental Europe saw an explosion of British domestic tourism in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Many of these picturesque tourists were intent on sketching, or at least discussing what they saw in terms of landscape painting. Gilpin's works were the ideal companions for this new generation of travellers.
Good day to you. Reverend Lewis West. Welcome to Brockweir. Quiet. Brockweir Quay was the last tidal quay for boats travelling up the Wye. Beyond here, the water was too shallow for the large trows from Bristol. Many of the wharves were constructed of timber, but have now not survived. In the 18th and 19th centuries, produce from Herefordshire was brought on barges to Brockweir, and iron and timber from the Forest of Dean. Goods were transferred onto large trows for transport to Bristol. Before steam power, the barges were pulled back upstream by teams of men called Yes. Oh, carry on.
But there were many complaints about the bad language in the area.
The salmon boatman was obscene as an improper, as those at Wapping or Rotherhithe.
I take a very right-wing view of the working class. As for the boatmen, they are extremely rude in their manners, indifferent to the accommodation of the public, and by no means unpracticed in various arts of extortion.
The passengers were just a foul-mouthed and thoughtless passenger displays his talent in a vulgar jest, which are the cheek of virgin modesty, spreads the deep crimson's lovely glow.
Quiet, please. Records show that in the 18th and 19th centuries, almost all the inhabitants of Brockweir were employed on the river.
Oh, well, not quite all. There were others, particular to Brockweir. Brockweir was thought to be one of the most lawless places. Yeah. Thank you. Its reputation was earned by having about 16 public houses. For all the stevedores who were employed to load and unload the ships from the quayside.
Only one narrow road led into the village, and goods were usually transported by donkey or by water, with a ferry taking the customers, sir, to and from the Welsh banks of the river.
Yes, that's quite enough, Polly. Quite enough. Thank you. In 1833, the Duke of Beaufort issued an edict for the Moravian church to be set up in the village because of its lawless reputation. And the church was built on the site of a former cockpit.
And the life of the waterman is centred on beer houses, skittle alleys, and cockfights. And it has the reputation of a city of refuge for lawless elements.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Wye tourists, accompanied by the two brothels, Higher Brockweir and Lower Brockweir, and our singing competition.
Oh,
complete. If you'd like to follow us to Tinton, our next show will be at 2:30. 2 o'clock, thank you, Andy. 2 o'clock, the buses leave shortly. So, thank you very much to Brockweir, and we are now off. I see. Tinton Abbey.